Knowing him personally, I'm extremely sad for him. I feel bad for him. You also know the implications of having this type of injury at this point in your career, a point in your career where you weren't necessarily considered the type of receiver you once were in New York, where you are getting up in age, where it is coming to the end of a contract, and also to where a team who now played better without you for the rest of the game, albeit against the Bengals, have an opportunity to show that they can be better without you for the rest of the season, that their young first overall pick at the quarterback position can be better without you being on the field. And I think all those things are a negative for Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, your first thought is, okay, we want him to be okay. You want him to come back healthy. You want him to have another opportunity. But the implications for his career are huge. The implications for what once looked like a Hall of Fame opportunity are huge. And so for Odell Beckham Jr., it's going to be about getting healthy first, but it's also going to be about understanding where he is, being aware of his perception, and trying to find the best place to go to revive his career, to be what everyone always thought he was in New York, to be what everyone thought that he would possibly become as his career finished. It's not over for Odell Beckham Jr., but this is a major detour. This is a major adversity hitting him at probably what would be the worst time for Odell Beckham Jr. And so when you look at the Cleveland Browns and where they are, they now have an opportunity to show that with their weapons, that without having Odell Beckham Jr., this team can be better offensively, which doesn't bode well for him coming off of an ACL injury, trying to be someone else's new number one, and also having the perceptions of who he is as a person. I think this is a very tough situation for O.
You know what it makes me think of is Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson didn't have the length of his career to put up the greatest career ever, but we all know what we saw. We know what we saw, and once he hurt his hip, he couldn't play anymore. Even as a baseball player, he could never be the same. Grant Hill was going to be an all-time great, and when we talk about guys who, if only not for this injury, or whether it is an acute injury or what could have been. I bring up Sandy Koufax on the show a bunch, the greatest pitcher of all time. 30 years old, he had to retire because of an arthritic elbow, right? But at least Koufax and some of the other guys I mentioned put up enough of a prime that they will be called either the greatest or among the all-time greats. I think if we talk about, great football players, we certainly think about Bo Jackson. And Odell, to me, has that level of talent. Odell has transcendent talent. And I would hate to think that an acute injury like this means that it's never going to happen for him. I will say this. If it takes about a year to get back so that he's really not fully back by 2022, not next season, but the following season, sometimes it takes another year to get back to where you were. Not just back on the field, but back to where you were. So the question will be, at the age of 30 in 2023, can Odell be most of what he's been? Because, guys, most of what Odell was athletically is enough to get into the Hall of Fame if he can stay on the field, and channel it in the right direction. I'm hopeful that we haven't seen the last of him as an elite receiver, but this does make you scared that, wait, did we just witness one of those historical career-changing moments? It's up to Odell, the work he puts in, and a little bit of luck.
I think we can eradicate the word over. But I agree with both of y'all. There's definitely extreme cause for concern that he may never be the same. There's an ACL injury. You're going to be out for the rest of the season, likely the rest of next season, before you're able to come back healthy. But even then, when you come back healthy, we've seen Odell, when he's been 100% healthy, not producing the way we would like because of the quarterback he was playing with. The fact that he wasn't getting the ball enough, that he wasn't targeted enough, that he wasn't the primary target that he aspired to be. He played for Eli Manning. He played with Baker Mayfield. He hasn't had an Aaron Rodgers, a Drew Brees, a Tom Brady, anything Russell Wilson. He hasn't had anything like that. And chances are those kind of guys are going to have their personnel intact. So in the event that Odell Beckham Jr. is available, they don't necessarily need him. Remember, Odell Beckham Jr., make no mistake about it, he didn't want to be in Cleveland after this year. He was planning on leaving after this season. If he had his druthers, guess what? He would have ended up in Green Bay or Seattle or someplace like that. The bottom line is that was when he was elite, and he still had those gripes. Now that he's been compromised health-wise, We don't know if anybody will be interested in taking that chance on him, which certainly means this. He ain't going to get the money he was coveting, that's for sure. And it's all a damn shame.
Yeah.
Well, by the time
I think the thing we have to remember Odell, had the early big-time injury when he was runs the slant route, gets pulled over, breaks his ankle. And so we've seen him rehab, we've seen him work, we've seen him come back. The scarier part is, at one point in his career, even with the declining Eli, it didn't matter. He was that transcendent of a talent that he could make the plays. He could take slants to the house. He could do some of these amazing things that still kept him in the forefront of our minds as one of the league's greats. Even in Cleveland, we would have to say, you know what? Oh, when they got it to him, we saw this. Or you go back to the Dallas game and you say, okay, when he got a reverse, we could see that talent that we always knew he had. So now when you're a team looking at Odell after the ACL, even if he's 100%, because ACL surgeries and rehabs have changed, even if he's 100%, I agree with Stephen A., no one's going to be willing to give him that money. So he's going to have to say, you know what, I'm going to take the best deal and the best opportunity to show people that I'm still Odell Beckham Jr. and I am still a transcendent talent and I can produce. And that's the best hopes for O coming out of this.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.